You're listening to the Live Out Loud podcast with River Wynn and Michele Flamer.
Hi, River.
Hi, Michele and Samantha.
I should go, how you doing? Because we're in New York.
Hi, River.
Hi.
Hi.
We were just talking about, but I love seeing you and Michele on the screen together because normally when we record, we're all on different screens, but you two are hanging out right now.
I know, it's trippy. And I imagine like one day you'll be here, like we'll all be in one area together maybe, which would be really fun.
That would be fun. I've never been to the East Coast, so yeah. I need to someday.
New York is cold right now.
Is it?
Well, it was fine yesterday because it was like if it's in the 30s or above, it's like I can walk without a beanie or whatever. This morning, the chill, like it was 12 degrees when I left to go to the trade show, and it was like it just it blew up on me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is cold." Uber.
Needed your layers.
I had a few layers on, but yeah, no, I mean it's fine because I just jump in an Uber. I wait inside, jump in the Uber, then go into the trade show and walk all day, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like seeing you two on the screen together.
That's cute. Look at this is Hudson. He's won't say
so
anything,
cute.
Samantha, this is number 4 episode you've been with us.
Yeah.
For a while, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was quite some time ago.
Yeah, when did we last? I think it was like September, October, maybe.
Wow.
Oh, it's been longer?
I think it was before that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's trippy.
Going by fast. Next thing you know, it's going to be 2 years of the podcast.
I know. That happens when in July. When do we start? July, I think.
July.
Yeah, that'll be 2 years. That's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
So what's the topic today, darling?
Well, so I posted on my Instagram stories last night because I'm starting to share more content on my own personal Instagram around divorce and becoming a solo parent and parenting and like healing as a single person, single woman. But I asked in my stories, like, what would be a value to for people to hear around that? Like, what do you want to hear? Like, ask me questions. And out of the questions that came through, that was one that just really caught my attention, and I thought it would be an amazing podcast topic. So the question was, how do you tap into strength during those times when you're making big life changes? And I was specifically, talking about divorce and all of that, but I feel like that question applies to so many, like all life scenarios, all life changes. So I thought that'd be a great one for us to talk about, especially with Sam.
Yeah, I know, her therapist, vibe, but plus and I mean, you are kind of a boss babe at this point.
A boss babe?
Yeah, I mean, you have your own business. You fucking crush at that. You're a mom. Like there's a lot of moving parts still with the kids, it's like even though they're in their 20s, like you have under 10, I've got teenage, and then she's got, early 20s, the 20s, yeah. And so it's really cool because it's different perspectives. But let me tell you, like hanging out and staying here, like her kids FaceTime her and call her like constantly. It's never stops.
I love that because that's what I hope I have with my kids someday. So I love to hear that. I'm like, that's my hope.
Yeah, they're my people. They're so my people.
They're all very cute together. But I think so different phases. But we were talking about this topic because I thought it was interesting that you brought that up. And Sam was thinking like, well, I've been divorced a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about the topic too. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like the life cycle is it's not linear. So you're constantly going through changes, whether it be divorce or, losing a loved one or changing careers or becoming a parent or, moving. I mean, there's just these periods happen and we need strength to get through them. So it's a really great topic.
Yeah, I'm curious for you as a therapist and coach, how do you kind of define the concept of strength. I know for myself, I feel like for each person, it might be a little bit different based on their own circumstances and like what their own tools are for themselves. I know when I look at my own life, I grew up, my childhood, I grew up in a cult and I was in a domestic violence relationship after that. And I've been through so much in my life that when it came to getting divorced, everything I had been through in my life had created a resiliency already that, and it was like worse than getting divorced. So when it came to divorce, it was like a no-brainer for me. Like, oh, I'm doing this. I just did it. And there wasn't a conscious thought of like, how exactly am I going to do this? I just did it because I knew I could do hard things because I had that resiliency muscle built.
Yeah.
But for people who haven't maybe had like a similar life like that or have that resiliency muscle built up, like how would you define strength in that context of life changes?
I mean, I think it really, I mean, it brings me back a little bit to my program with just this unboxing idea. I think it just also really, it really comes down to being able to unpack all the things that keep you away from your authentic self.
Yes.
So, I mean, I work with so many people who have a lot of guilt or a lot of shame or a lot of anxiety, and those things are blocking them from being able to connect to what feels right inside, like what's intuitively right, what's sitting right in their gut. They don't know how to make that connection because there are so many layers that get put on us through our family of origin or like, how you grew up, I have my own set of circumstances, most of us do have imperfect situations growing up, including my three kids, because I got divorced when they were 5 and under. So yeah, I just think that, I think it's like you have to be curious to go on a quest to find yourself inside, and that might mean doing work to explore what it is that's keeping you from yourself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really
because I
love
think
that
we
too.
are we are so conditioned to avoid the hard work or avoid the things that feel uncomfortable, to avoid the unknown because of that fear and that panic of I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what's going to look like. And so we just run away from it, right? But there, as we all know, there is just so much value in leaning into the hard things and moving through it and just diving in and saying, I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to do this, but I know that I can't keep doing what I was doing. I can't stay in this place. And I know looking back at my divorce, like it took me 8 years because I knew from day one that it was going to have an expiration date, but it took me 8 years to make that decision, because I was afraid a little bit and I wasn't able to listen to the voice inside of myself. And I feel like maybe Sam, you experience this a lot too. A lot of women I talk to, especially women, when they come to life choices, there's been a voice inside of them that's been nudging at them and letting them know for a while that they are uncomfortable and they're not in an alignment or in their authentic space, but they've ignored it, they've ignored it, they've ignored it. And I think for me, and when I work with other people too, the strength piece comes from choosing to listen to that voice. Even though everything's going to blow up in your face or feel like it's going to blow up in your face.
Yeah, I think like we were talking about like when I knew I wanted to get divorced, like I asked my therapist, and I've told this story a little bit before, but yeah, I've asked my therapist like, hey, help me get a divorce. I mean, it really was like, hey, I'm not strong enough yet. I don't have the strength quite yet. Like, I don't want to just rip a Band-Aid off. Like, I want to do this intentionally so that we can do it right. And also I wanted to really make sure that that I was really prepared going forward. But it's interesting because I didn't even think or worry about what was next, like after that. Like it was just about having that initial conversation, knowing that I already knew the reaction. I already knew what was going to be coming after that. It was not as if, we were, together for like 2 years and then like, it was, a long time of wrapping my head around that conversation. But I just felt like I owed it to the relationship to like really process it for myself. And I mean, so if you don't have the strength, it's like
Mm-hmm.
great to lean into your therapist or a coach and somebody else just to like walk you through those steps sometimes if you don't feel sure-footed going right into it.
Yeah,
The other
therapy got me through a lot of big choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to say was that you said, River, earlier, was how you knew that you needed to do this, but what you didn't know was what was going to then happen and what things would look like.
Yeah.
And I think that that's, for most people, that's the scariest piece
Mm-hmm.
is what's my life going to be like afterwards? Am I going to be alone forever? That's probably
Mm-hmm.
the most
Oh,
common thing
I
I
hear that from
hear.
all the later in lifers.
Everyone. Yeah, that's all I hear. But what I want to say is like, I also think that even if you are married or partnered, the idea that that means that you know what's going to happen next all the time is just not true. Like
The
that,
false sense of security.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
that's the package that we are sold.
Mm-hmm.
Do these things, and then you will have the same thing forever. This is going to be your forever situation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just not true.
right.
No, because it's not human reality. Anything can change at a moment's notice. You
Yeah,
never know what's
you
going to
never
be. You
know.
could step out your front door and get hit by a car. Like you
Exactly.
never know what can happen. And so if you live in that space of fear and uncertainty, you're really holding yourself back in so many ways. And I think
Mhm.
for a lot of people, the question is how do they get past that place of, how do they break through the fear? How do they
Yeah.
break through the things that are holding them back to make that step? To lean in, to dive in, to let their life implode so that when the dust settles, they're more aligned. How do they do
Mhm.
that?
Are you asking?
Yeah. I'm like, what do you think? What do you think, Sam or
I mean,
Michele?
I think honestly, my situation was very much like yours, River, where I had no idea what was going to happen. I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids under 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a career. I had no clue what anything would look like. But I just knew that, like, I believed in myself.
Mhm.
And I knew I would figure it out, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Yes, Michelle always laughs at because I say that about everything that I'm going to figure it out. But I
Where's
sure
your
figured it
t-shirt?
out. Yes, I have my sweatshirt in the other room. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's like you have to have that, that kind of trust and belief in yourself and what you're feeling that like you're going to get through this. You're going to lean on people, you're going to lean on family, friends, community, your therapist, your coach, yourself, reading about things, watching things, like you're going to get through this.
But what if someone doesn't have this like this, connections, these people in place to like walk
Mm.
through? What if they're literally just in the middle of the country alone?
Yeah, I mean,
Feeling
they have to believe that on the other side of not having this thing that's not working, that doesn't feel good, that's feeling misaligned with them, that they will find themselves,
Mhm.
without that. Like it's work. It's a
Mhm.
journey, it's not like an immediate, it's not like 1, 2, 3, boom, I'm divorced. Okay, now my life is great. Like it takes work.
Yep. Yep. I'm curious. I was just thinking as you were saying that, I'm curious, something people have told me a lot in my life is, you're a strong person. You always get through things. You have this resiliency. You have this natural ability to just push through and like alchemize everything that's happened to you in your life. And they'll say, where did that come from? And I honestly don't know. And I'm curious, like as a therapist, if you think that are people just born with that? Like, are people born with like an innate sense of
Oh,
resiliency
really?
and whereas other
Hmm.
people are maybe not born with that? And is it something that people can learn that resiliency and build that trust muscle? But are there people who are just born with that innately?
No, we're all born with that. It's what you are exposed to
So
once you're
trauma
born.
trauma can change all that.
Trauma, conditioning,
Yeah,
just
conditioning.
what you were raised around, growing up in fear, constantly being confronted with fear and scary things. Yeah, all the ways that resiliency and that inner strength gets, minimized. So yeah,
Yeah.
we are actually born with that.
It really is just luck of the draw. If you don't have a support system around you that's just, cutting you at every turn.
Yeah, environment plays a huge role, you know. For me, when I got divorced, I was very lucky that I already had a very strong circle of women that I had been able to depend upon through a large portion of my life from like college onward. And I was very blessed to have those people in my life to like have daily phone calls. Angela and our friend Mary and I had daily group chat messages where it was just me incredibly dysregulated through my divorce process, just constantly like stressed out, anxious, texting them just like, and I had a great therapist. Like I had all these things in place that really helped me through that transition. And so I can't imagine going through some of the same divorce scenario that I did without having that in place. That would be so overwhelming to not have that kind of support and that kind of lifeline. So I imagine that probably it's hard to see yourself as strong or to see yourself as having any kind of strength when you are completely overwhelmed, dysregulated, have no idea what's going on.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
And I think some of the bravest people are the ones who don't have anybody and they're still like, they're listening to podcasts or they're reading or they're doing everything else that they kind of can do. And there's such a resilience in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, what would you say are the ways that people can build that strength and resiliency for themselves, that trust muscle?
That's a
Like, what
good
are
one.
like how do they do that?
How they do that.
You looking at me?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're looking at you,
How you
Sarah.
doing? How you doing?
I know
Not
you're
looking
sitting
at you,
next to
kid.
each other and you can't tell where I'm looking, but I'm looking at you.
I see you.
She knew.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's something that I work with people on that in therapy. So you're asking if you're not in therapy and you're all alone,
Yeah.
right? And you have
Yeah.
nobody to bounce stuff off of. How do you work on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just in general too, like if you're not someone who has maybe been like a super growth or mindset oriented person, or you haven't had a lot of big trauma and you haven't had to build like that deep resiliency and strength, like how do you, when confronted with like these huge life changes and you suddenly need it, how do you go about building that?
It's a good question.
It is a really good question. Hold on one second. Yeah.
I know that's a big question.
It
Somebody
is a
answer
big
it.
question. I mean, I don't know that there's any one solution, but what I think is, I mean, honestly, I think being in your body is so important. And I think so many of us go through life being very disembodied. So I would say that one of the best ways to get in touch with yourself and with your inner strength and your inner light would be something like starting, and you could do this on YouTube, like go on YouTube and start a yoga practice. Start connecting to your breath, start connecting to your body, start connecting to alignment, and just opening yourself up. Honestly, when I came out, I did a yoga teacher training. So I got trained as a teacher in 2003 and I was teaching for quite some time, but it helped me. It was while I was going through my divorce. I did the training. Right. And so I mean, that's a way to really you have to be able to get into your body
Yeah.
to get this strength.
Yeah, I know for me in my divorce process, nervous system regulation was a huge key for me, because I was so dysregulated, and I had been so dysregulated for most of my life and didn't realize it. Um, I it feels so counterintuitive to say slow down when you're going through big life changes and your nervous system is just like fight or flight mode's activated and everything's overwhelming and crazy and you have no idea what's going to happen 10 minutes from now, let alone 10 months from now. It feels counterintuitive to say to slow down, but I did that during my divorce process. I was utilizing sound therapy. I was going to float tanks. You know I was scraping the bottom of my bank account to do things like go to yoga and and I was doing meditation. And so I was really leaning into a lot of that because that helped me ground back into myself. And I started to realize and notice that the more I grounded back into myself and the more I got myself regulated, the more peaceful things started to become externally. And even if they didn't become peaceful externally, I still had more resiliency to handle them and to deal with them.
And I think to your point of like trying all these different modalities, I think you could use it in such a wonderful, like fun way because you can say to
Mm-hmm.
yourself, I'm going through this really hard thing right now that I need like
Mm-hmm.
strength, but if they've never done any of that, it's like let's find out what thing drops me into myself the best. Like for me,
Mm-hmm.
yoga isn't it. Like it's going outside and walking. That drops me in faster than anything. Like meditation
Mm-hmm.
is one thing, but my mind will still race if it's like a lot of heavy things. And it'll take me a long time to finally, like I almost have to just do it like when I'm asleep. So I mean almost asleep. So this way it's like I just literally go into la la land. And
Mm.
so for me, I think I've always realized like just finding different things that work for you and and no person is cut in the same way. So
Yep.
Yeah, I think movement of any kind,
mhm.
sound healing, like you said, journaling was
Yes.
I have so many journals just
Same.
filled.
Yep.
So there
Yep.
you go. Like get it out, put it on paper,
Yes, I've always done a ton of journaling, and that was a huge resource for me, especially in times of my life where I couldn't afford therapy.
Well, the
You
other thing
know?
that what we were talking about, you and I think it was like around getting ChatGPT to know who we are. Like you really talk to them so much. And I think at this point, like with tech, like we all didn't have this kind of tech, when we were each going through these divorces. But
Mm-hmm.
like I have so many friends now who are they told their scenario to ChatGPT, and I think there's really I know so many people are hesitant to going into AI, but there is something wonderful about knowing that you're telling your whole story to this inanimate thing. And now it knows the story so that chat can give you therapy advice and like walk you through a whole scenario of healing. And you can then ask it for a daily plan to like get to where you want to be. And you
Mm-hmm.
can keep diving in, but it like for I say a recovering people pleaser, recovering codependent person, for me, that's why talk therapy, and then we've talked about this before. It wasn't really working for me because I realized I was just wanting to tell the therapist even like what I think they wanted to hear,
Yeah.
or I wasn't being real with myself. I was
Yeah, you were
gaslighting.
censoring yourself.
Yeah, I was
Yeah. Yeah.
gaslighting myself. So the cool thing about chat, and I was talking to this with somebody on the plane yesterday, and I just said, well, think about it's like a no-face therapist, and you get to just say what you want. And I think that's why you get so much more because it's almost like journaling in a way. It's like a safe
Mm-hmm.
place to like put the deep, dark secrets and tell Chat GPT, and then say, what are some ways that I can start coping through this? And
Yeah,
then
I love ChatGPT. I think
I
it's a
know.
great resource and tool. I use it for a lot of things.
And they use it in conjunction in between their therapy appointments. I don't want
Mm,
to discount, the work that therapists do because, especially with different modalities like IFS or EMDR or somatic
yeah.
healing and it's not typically just talk therapy, but really allowing it to be in between for the homework piece.
Mm,
And again, I think it just becomes that you're getting it out of your head. However, you need to just get it out of your head and start processing, is like the way to go.
hmm I was thinking, I know for me, looking over my life, I've never listened to my internal voice, taken a leap, and had it go badly.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I listened to that little voice in the back of my head that was telling me, this is not for you, this is not for you, this doesn't feel good, this is not right, and I listened to it, it was uncomfortable for a while. Yes, and my life changed, but the other side of it was beautiful. It brought me another step closer to where I need to be.
Yeah.
And so I really just I guess if I had to tell anybody anything about strength, I think the biggest thing for me would be I really hope that you take one small action, and it's not small, it's a big one, but you take the action of listening to yourself and
Mm-hmm.
choosing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. Like, cut out
Yeah.
all the external noise and just like, what do I need? What do I want? And do it.
Yeah.
Because that's where you start with building that trust muscle. Because every time you choose yourself and everything goes well and everything unfolds for you in ways that you could never have imagined, you're building that trust muscle with yourself. And
Yeah.
then you trust yourself more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get in those same situations again, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the things that you said, River, that I think is so important too is, that when you would have these moments, like you knew that you would go through a period of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like really important because
Mm-hmm.
most people have a really hard time taking a step towards something that's going to make them uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that discomfort is just like they'll do anything to
Mm-hmm.
not have to sit in discomfort.
Yeah,
That's
and then
why,
there's River. No, then there's River
God.
and I who are like, oh my God, I'm feeling everything. And I'm like so excited to fucking unpack this shit and figure out where it's coming from. Like you had awareness yesterday,
Yeah,
just us talking.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's fascinating when it happens like that, where you don't even know it's coming. You're just processing through stuff or
Yeah.
talking it out loud.
24/7, yeah.
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 I think, there's so many reasons why women don't leave relationships, especially abusive relationships. It's so multi-layered. But one of the things I've observed within my own self and my experiences and the people around me, people that I've worked with, is that the known is so much more comfortable than the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
That even though a woman is being abused and treated terribly, it still feels safer to her
Yep.
than anything she's going to experience when she leaves it, because she doesn't know what that's going to feel like.
What is that saying? Like the devil kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing with anything in life. And like for me, in the past year, the thing I've had to kind of confront is that dating is really uncomfortable. Dating
Yeah.
is really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because I don't know what it's like to be in a healthy relationship. And
Mhm.
I have the awareness that getting into a healthy relationship doesn't mean it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows and everything's magical and you've arrived at this space of la la land. No, sometimes it gets harder because it's going to force you, it's going to hold a mirror up to everything you still need to work on that you didn't really get to work on when you were a single person by yourself, because it's not going to be triggered until you get into a healthy relationship.
That's the
Yeah.
fucking truth.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so
because
I've avoided dating for 2 years now because of that. Like, ugh.
no, I mean,
Oh, I don't want that.
yeah, I mean, I've had so many therapists say, like, first of all, you never stop learning and growing. Like that's a constant. You're never at this like fantasy healed space. You're just more healed maybe than the day before, and that's a blessing, right? that you continue to heal and, fix and clean up or do whatever. But like one of my friends I bumped into in Atlanta, she was legit, had just gone through losing her mother but had to really caretake the whole, she was a caretaker for a while. And I said, so are you in therapy? That's just my natural, so are you talking to a therapist? No. And then she literally looked back at me. I've known her for a long time, because she said, I don't want to honestly know what's underneath all of this, which is exactly.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, you have to. I said, I'm going to promise you, it's going to get uncomfortable. But on the other side of that uncomfortableness is you being, like Sam said earlier, like being more embodied, connected.
I think the reality is that everyone on this planet is just trying to escape their own wounds and escape dealing with their own selves. And in the course of, that, they hurt other people in that process, like even like narcissists are deeply wounded people, and they cannot examine it. They cannot look at it. They can't even begin. They can't even begin to go underneath the surface of examining themselves, and they can't even acknowledge it. That's why they say not like narcissists will always be narcissists, because they can't even acknowledge it, and so strength, I think one of like the hallmarks of strength is being able to look at yourself.
Yeah.
To look at yourself and say, how can I do better? How can I improve? How can I grow? How can I heal? How can I get through this and be okay with being uncomfortable in the process?
I think that's the bam right at the end. It's how can I get through being uncomfortable? Because all those other things you listed, they're going to make you uncomfortable.
That's right.
Yes.
So you have got to be able to just be okay with being uncomfortable. Pema Chardon's book, Comfortable with Uncertainty, is a great resource.
I haven't read that one.
Oh my God. That's a must.
Adding to my list.
Comfortable with uncertainty. I have it in the other room.
Comfortable with uncertainty. Okay, I'll put it in the show notes.
I mean, it's this idea that we have certainty about anything. It's like, it's just so crazy. Like we have no certainty about anything, really.
I know.
And then all we're doing is running away from being uncomfortable, and uncertainty and not being certain is uncomfortable. It just is. As humans, it's going to be. We've got to be okay with that. You've got to flow with that.
Yep. That is the human journey. That's why we're here, to learn and grow, to move through.
I always say to my friend, I'm like, those people, I'm like, bitch, you signed up to come back to Earth. And it always makes me laugh.
Yes. I do believe that, though. I do believe that, like, they're not that, someone who's been abused has signed up for the abuse. You know what I mean? But I do personally
it's the
believe
lessons that we signed up
that there's lessons that we came here. There's karma. There's karma we came here to work through. And, I've had more than my fair share of shit happen. And I've talked about that with my therapist, and she was like, yeah, dude, you signed up for a big life because you have a lot to share, but you can't share unless you know what it feels like. And I was like, yes, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like strength is all those things. It's like, it's doing what's uncomfortable. It's just knowing knowing that you want to be on the other side of something, of that pain and stuff, but you literally have to go through it to grow through it. Ooh, you like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to go through it to grow through it.
I like it. That should be a title.
I will, maybe, the title of the episode, or
yeah,
that is a good one.
That's a good one.
It's true.
Yay. That was a good topic.
Yeah, I feel like we landed at a good space there. Maybe some helpful advice for people who are going through it and don't know what to do. I will say one last thing. I think I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time overthinking the big choices.
Yes.
And that keeps them from actually making the choice. And I think another sign of strength is being able to say, no more overthinking. I'm just doing it. Just taking action.
Or it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One, like small bites at a time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're not just going to take the whole elephant in, because that would not be pleasant. But
Exactly.
but a bite at a time. Like, I think just taking a step every day, like I said, like if we're healing a little bit more every day, if we feel more sure-footed every day, then you're walking in the right direction.
And
Yeah.
one last thing that came
Yeah.
up for me is
Yeah.
this thing that I also hear so much of, and it's such an interesting concept when I hear people talk about this, but I don't want to regret it.
Especially moms try to figure out if they're going to leave their toxic marriage and they have small children. Like, they worry so much, are my kids going to hate me, or am I going to regret this? Like, they worry about ruining their kids' lives, and then they stay for so long because of that. Yeah, the regret piece. Yeah.
And also it's like, I don't know, like, I don't know. I feel like people don't ever want to regret anything in their life, but I don't know. I think like regret to me is kind of the equivalent to like grieving. Like things, we have losses, we have things that happen that didn't quite go the way we wanted them to. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there can be some regret in that it happened that way.
Yes.
Grieve that and feel that,
And
but
let it
people
go, yeah.
again, they don't want to go into that discomfort of the grieving and the sadness. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel regret, but you have to go through all of that. It's okay to have some regrets. Like, it's life, you know?
Do I regret marrying my ex-husband? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also have these two beautiful, wonderful human children that I absolutely adore. And so for that reason, I'm glad that it happened. And so that thing about two truths can be true, right? Two things can be true at the same time.
Yep.
You can regret something having happened or have grief for it having happened, but it was also a catalyst to getting you to the next chapter that you currently love. Like, I love the chapter of life that I am in, but I wouldn't be in this chapter if I hadn't made those choices.
Yeah.
And some of those choices I regret, but they still happened for a reason. And here I am.
Yeah.
You know, so you can have it together, like the grief and the regret and the joy and the gratitude all in one. And I think that's a big piece of strength too, is when you get to the point where you realize you're going to have both at the same time.
Yep. I like it.
And both.
And both.
Well, I don't regret doing this podcast ever.
Me either.
Thank you, girls. This was fun. You guys, this was awesome.
Yes, I love it. I love seeing you on the camera together. Next time, hopefully, we can all be in person together
That would be
someday.
fun.
That would be so fun. Love you.
Love you too. Bye, Sam.
Bye, River.
If you enjoyed this episode today, be sure to subscribe and share, because what do we say, baby?
Sharing is caring.